Sarah was at her breaking point. Alone, with a sick child in her arms and no money even for milk, she typed a desperate plea for help and sent it to the wrong number. What was supposed to be just another humiliation turned into the beginning of something she never imagined. A reply from a reclusive billionaire who had forgotten what it felt like to truly feel. Amidst distrust, pain, and secrets from the past, an unlikely connection blossomed, and a choice that would change everything. The dim kitchen light barely reached the concrete floor. Sarah sat, leaning against the cabinet door, her hands trembling as she clutched her cell phone. Little Lily slept on a thin mattress in the corner of the living room, her tiny body still burning with fever. On the screen, a simple message, written with more shame than hope. "Sorry to bother you, but I'm out of milk, out of diapers, out of options. Can you lend me $50? I'll pay you back as soon as I can, I promise." It was meant for a former colleague who now lived in another city. Sarah read it 3 times, and before her courage completely vanished, she hit send. Seconds later, regret washed over her. Her face flushed as if the plea itself was a defeat, but it was when she glanced at the number at the top of the conversation that the ground seemed to vanish beneath her. She had sent it to the wrong person. Sarah Miller was 26, but her face told a longer story. She was the kind of woman who learned early to swallow her tears and press on. She'd been working since she was 14, first as a babysitter, then as a cleaner. When she got pregnant, the child's father vanished as easily as he appeared. Since then, it had been just her and Lily. She lived in the back of a house rented from an elderly couple who accepted part of the rent in exchange for cleaning. The small room had a noisy refrigerator, an old stove, and a mattress on the floor. It was all she could afford. She'd learned not to complain much about life, just enough not to explode from within. In recent days, everything had worsened. Lily started running a fever, and the little breast milk Sarah had wasn't enough anymore. The makeshift cloth diaper was washed twice a day. The electricity bill was overdue. Food, 3 pieces of bread and instant coffee, that was it. Sarah had always been afraid to ask for help. She was ashamed. She learned to manage on her own, or to pretend she could. But that night, seeing her daughter cry and then fall asleep with a feverish, warm face broke something inside her. That's why she sent the message. But now, looking at the unknown number at the top of the chat, her stomach churned. "Damn it," she whispered. Before she could delete it, a reply popped up. "Who is this?" She froze. She could block the number, pretend nothing happened. But it was too late. Desperation once again outweighed her pride. "Sorry, wrong number, I'm just going through a tough time." The reply was curt. "You're asking money from whom?" Sarah hesitated. She typed slowly, "It was for a friend, but it's fine. Forget it." Silence. She looked back at Lily, who was whimpering on the mattress. Her chest tightened. She picked up her phone and did what she never thought she'd do. She took a picture of her sick daughter, then sent the prescription for the medicine and the baby formula she couldn't afford. She bundled it all together and sent it. She lay down on the cold floor beside her daughter and pulled the worn blanket over them both. She cried softly, like someone who was too tired even to beg, and she fell asleep like that. It was there that everything began to unravel. Sarah dreamed of little, but for her, it was everything. A small place with a window, a bed with clean sheets, food every day, and who knew, a steady job that paid enough never to have to ask anyone for anything again. That was it, not to depend, not to be humiliated. To give Lily what she herself never had. She still believed she could achieve it. Even with everything falling apart, she still believed. The next day, her face marked by dark circles, and her heart lighter for having at least spoken to someone, even if it was a stranger. She gathered the few things she had, tied her hair back, and left with Lily in her arms. She had an interview for a cleaning job at a small office. It was far, and she had to walk for almost an hour, balancing her backpack, her daughter, and her hope. She arrived sweaty, tired, but with a shy smile on her face. She waited for over half an hour in a cold reception area until the owner appeared. A middle-aged man with a condescending air. He asked, "Where do you live?" She answered, without embellishment, the name of the working-class neighborhood where she lived. He raised his eyebrows, looked her up and down and said, "We already have someone, sorry." Sarah still tried to argue, to explain that she could work well, learn quickly, that she needed the position. But he had already turned his back. She walked back home under a harsh sun, with Lily asleep in her arms, and the feeling that the world was laughing at her behind her back. The shame was so immense that, for a moment, she thought of disappearing. When she arrived, she kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto the floor. Her phone was in the corner of the kitchen, dead. She plugged it in without expectation, but as soon as it lit up, the notification appeared. "Can you prove this story is real?" It took Sarah a few seconds to remember the number. The message was from before the interview. Her heart pounded. It was him again. She had already sent everything, Lily's photo, the medicine estimate. But he still wanted more. "I've sent what I have, but if you want, you can come see for yourself." Silence. She dropped the phone, not expecting a reply, but she was wrong. That afternoon, while washing clothes in the backyard tub, she heard someone knock at the front gate. It was a delivery man in an orange uniform with 2 large bags. He said her name, confirmed the address, handed everything over, and an envelope. Sarah went inside slowly. She opened the bags on the floor, diapers, milk, medicine, food, and inside the envelope, crisp, new bills. $250. Her hand trembled. She picked up her phone. The message was there, simple. "Take good care of her." As she collapsed. She cried on the kitchen floor, alone, but for the first time she didn't feel invisible, and she still thought she could fix everything. That night, Sarah stayed awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Lily slept better, her little body more peaceful after the medicine, but her mother's heart was in chaos. She looked at the envelope with the money as if it were a lie. She counted the bills 3 times, all brand new, no note beyond those 3 words. Take good care of her. Sarah didn't know whether to smile or cry. She did both. The next morning, she prepared the new milk with a strange joy in her chest. She washed the cup carefully, as if every gesture now held more value. Lily nursed in her lap, her eyes half closed, clinging to her mother's shirt. After the girl fell asleep again, Sarah picked up her phone and stared at the screen. The last message was still there. No new notifications. No name, no profile picture, no last seen. It seemed like a message from a ghost, but she needed to know who it was. She typed the number into a messaging app. Nothing. She searched on Google. Nothing. On Facebook, Instagram, reverse lookup sites. Nothing. Until, on one of them, a name associated with the number appeared. David Sterling. She didn't know him. She typed it into Google. The first result was an old interview of a man in a dark suit, serious face, empty eyes, tech entrepreneur, billionaire, founder of one of the country's largest platforms. Sarah felt the ground disappear. It made no sense. Why would someone like that respond to a mistakenly sent message? Why would he send money, food, medicine? She was nobody, just another invisible woman. She watched some of his interviews, always cold, direct, no social involvement whatsoever, no charity, no humanitarian projects. A man who seemed to live on the fringes of emotion. And yet, it had been him. She spent the day caught between astonishment and doubt. She tried to find explanations. Could it be a mistake? Did he think she was someone else? Was someone using his number? But there, in the house where silence always hurt more than noise, something was different. Sarah didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew that gesture, simple, direct, almost silent, had ignited a spark within her. In the late afternoon, as she hung clothes on the makeshift clothesline, her phone vibrated. A new message from the same number. "Do you have time to talk tonight?" She stared at the screen for long seconds. Her heart was pounding so hard it seemed to echo in the room. She took a deep breath, typed, "Yes, I do." Minutes later, another message. "I'll call you at 9 p.m. Is that okay?" She replied yes. But the truth was, it wasn't okay at all. The fear of believing again, of opening up, of dreaming of what might not be hers, all of it tightened her chest. The hours dragged on. Every sound in the house seemed too loud. Every minute, an eternity. When 9 p.m. struck, her phone rang. Sarah answered with a sweaty hand. "Hello?" On the other end, silence. 2 seconds that felt like a century. "Is this Sarah?" A calm, deep male voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "David." She swallowed hard. She wanted to ask 1,000 things, but could only remain silent. "Sorry for not replying earlier," he said. "I needed to understand if what you wrote was true." She almost apologized again, but held back. Her voice choked. "Yes, it was. All true. Where do you live?" "In Evergreen Heights, lower part of the hill." "Is anyone with you?" She almost laughed. "Just my daughter, Lily. Her father disappeared before she was born." Silence on the other end. She almost hung up, thinking she had said too much. But then he said, "You sent that message to the wrong number, you know?" "I know. It was for an old colleague who moved away. I think I swapped a digit. This number, I bought it yesterday. It was clean, unused. You were the first message that came through." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was no coincidence. "It seems like something out of a movie," she murmured. "Maybe. Or maybe it was just the right time." On the other end of the line, he took a deep breath. "Sarah, if you had the chance to change everything, even if it was difficult, would you accept?" She closed her eyes. She remembered the hunger, her daughter crying, the slammed door at the interview. "If it's real, I accept." Silence. "Tomorrow morning I'll send someone to pick you up. Go to the address I'll send you. Take only the essentials, and don't tell anyone." "Where are you taking me?" "You'll know when you get there." "Eh? What if it's dangerous?" "I would never hurt you. Do you trust me?" Sarah hesitated, but she replied, "I trust you." And it was at that instant, with the phone still in her hand and her daughter sleeping beside her, that she understood. Something much bigger was about to begin. Have you ever trusted someone you barely knew just because you had nothing left to lose? Sarah did. And perhaps it was the riskiest and most right decision of her life. If you've also had to bet everything on a single chance, comment here with a yes, just so I know you're here, that you understand. The sun hadn't even risen when Sarah opened her eyes. She had slept little, her heart racing as if her body knew something was about to change. Lily was still asleep, hugging the teddy bear she'd gotten at a charity sale. The sound of her daughter's calm breathing was the only thing keeping Sarah anchored on that strange morning. The notification on her phone arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. "The driver's name is Michael. He'll pick you up in 30 minutes. Bring your documents and essentials for Lily. And please, trust." Sarah stood still, looking at the message. It was easy to say trust. It was hard to silence the voice that said everything could go wrong, but a part of her, the same part that made her hit send on the wrong message, told her she had to go. She packed her backpack calmly, as if each fold of clothing was a farewell to who she had been until then. Diapers, a baby bottle, Lily's birth certificate, her worn-out work permit, and a change of clothes for each of them. When the black car stopped in front of the house, Sarah felt time suspend. Michael got out, polite, called her name, and opened the door carefully. There was no ostentation, just efficiency and silence. Before getting in, she took one last look at the exposed brick shack. It wasn't beautiful, but it had been Lily's only shelter until then. She was afraid to leave it. She was afraid of not coming back, or of coming back the same. The drive lasted almost an hour. They passed through neighborhoods Sarah only knew by reputation. Wide streets, tree-lined avenues, tall walls, expensive silence. When the car finally stopped in front of a modern wooden and iron gate, she felt a chill run down her spine. This was it, where everything would begin or end. Michael simply said, "You can go in. Someone is waiting for you." Sarah swallowed hard. She picked Lily up, tightened the backpack strap on her shoulder, and walked through the gate. She didn't know what she would find, but for the first time in a long time, she wanted to try and find out. The house door opened, even before Sarah could ring the doorbell. An elegant woman, with a calm smile and sharp gaze, waited for her at the entrance. "Are you Sarah?" "I am. Nice to meet you." "Eleanor, come in. David has already explained everything. We'll take care of you and your daughter now, but with order, okay?" Sarah just nodded, somewhat stunned. The place looked like something out of a magazine. High ceilings, modern furniture, the smell of fresh coffee, and comfortable silence. But what caught her attention most was the space prepared in the corner of the living room, a children's rug, organized toys, a small high chair. It was as if they were already expecting Lily. Eleanor led her to a room with a glass table and a screen connected to a computer. "This will be your space for now. We'll start slow. Today, I just want to understand what you know how to do with a cell phone, with email, those kinds of things. Is that okay?" Sarah looked at the keyboard as if it were an unknown language. "I've never worked with this. Only cleaning." "Great. We'll start from scratch." Eleanor's tone had no pity, no arrogance. It was practical, direct, like someone who had trained many other women like Sarah and knew what she was doing. In the following hours, Sarah learned to use basic tools: virtual calendar, reading emails, filling out simple forms. All calmly. Eleanor explained patiently, and gradually Sarah lost her fear of making mistakes. In the middle of the afternoon, while Lily slept in a makeshift hammock in the next room, Sarah paused in front of the screen and quietly asked, "Why is he doing this?" Eleanor didn't look directly at her. "David never fully explained to me, but there's something about the way he spoke of you. Different. It's not charity. He wants to see what you can become." Sarah felt a shiver. She didn't even know what she could become yet. But at that moment, one thing was certain. Someone believed in her more than she believed in herself. And that changed everything. In the following days, Sarah woke up early, made coffee while Lily was still asleep, and already had the corner of the living room tidied for video calls with Eleanor. Learning new things became routine. Simple spreadsheets, organizing schedules, answering automated messages, dealing with small clients. It was like entering a world where she always thought she didn't belong. But inside, there was still a shadow, a nagging doubt. Sarah never knew how to receive. She was even ashamed to accept compliments. And now, she was living something that felt like a fantasy. A borrowed house, food in the fridge, new diapers, a remote job, and someone, a rich, distant man, observing everything from afar. Why? David didn't appear in person anymore, but he sent short messages. "Are you enjoying the work? Do you need anything for Lily? Can you give me an update tonight?" Sarah replied carefully, always with one foot in the past. She didn't know if it was kindness, surveillance, or something else, until one night, while washing dishes with her phone by the sink, a new message arrived. "Do you trust people easily, Sarah?" She stopped, wiped her hands on the towel and replied, "No, I never have. But yesterday, it felt like I should." There was a long pause. Then another notification. "You remind me of someone I lost." Sarah stared at the screen. She didn't know what to do with that. It was too personal, too painful. And at the same time, it seemed like the missing piece to explain that man so distant and yet so present. The next day, Eleanor commented something at the end of the video call. "Don't be surprised if David shows up again. Sometimes he does that, when something moves him." Sarah just nodded, trying to hide the turmoil inside. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, while Lily breathed softly beside her, wondering if this was the beginning of something, or just a stopping point before another fall. The sky was cloudy when David showed up unannounced. Sarah heard the doorbell and went to the gate with Lily in her arms, expecting to find Michael or a delivery. But it was him, in a black t-shirt and dark jeans, his hair slightly messy, and his eyes tired. "Can I come in?" he asked. She just nodded. Inside the house, the silence weighed heavier than words. Lily brightened at his presence and soon crawled to the rug to play. David watched her as if seeing something for the first time. A light silence until he said, "I need to show you something." Sarah frowned. He pulled his phone from his pocket, opened an image gallery, and turned the screen to her. They were photos. Of her. Of Lily. Of the house. Some clearly taken from afar. Hidden. Others, screenshots of stories posted by old neighbors. This, Sarah swallowed hard. Who did this? Adam. The name of her daughter's father hit her like a stone in the chest. She hadn't heard that name in almost 2 years. He had vanished without looking back. He reappeared, David said seriously. He's trying to create a story. He said you seduced me, that you're deceiving me. He's threatening the press. He said he's going to seek custody of Lily. Sarah felt the world spin. He disappeared before she was born. He never helped with anything. How can he now? Because he smells it. Money, control. And he's desperate. David approached the table, took a thin folder from his bag, and placed it in front of her. This is a contract. I want to officially make you my personal assistant. You already work with me, but I want to formalize everything. This gives you stability, a real salary, legal protection, and it gives me the right to act on your behalf if necessary. Sarah stared at the paper. It was more than a contract. It was a dividing line. Is this because of him? This is because I won't let anyone take away what is blossoming here. She remained silent. She wanted to trust. She wanted to sign. But she was afraid of losing her freedom, afraid of being drawn into a world that wasn't hers. What if I say no? Nothing changes. The house remains yours, the remote work too. But you remain more vulnerable, and I'm tied. She took a deep breath. She looked at Lily, playing on the rug with a new doll. What if he goes through with it? What if he exposes me? David moved a little closer. His voice was low but firm. Then I'll expose myself with you, but I won't let go of your hand. And it was at that moment, in that short sentence, that Sarah felt it. He wasn't there as a savior. He was there as someone who also needed to be saved, in his own way. She picked up the pen. Where do I sign? David smiled, for the first time with his eyes. Signing that paper didn't erase the fear, but it gave her something new, the right to fight. And now she was no longer alone. 3 months had passed since the day Sarah signed the contract. That morning tasted different. The sun streamed softly through the living room window, illuminating the toys scattered on the floor. Lily ran around with her teddy bear dragging on the floor, laughing with the lightness of someone who had never known hunger. Sarah drank coffee sitting on the porch, a notebook in her lap and her new laptop open beside her. She had learned to use everything: spreadsheets, platforms, executive calendar. Now she was responsible for coordinating part of David's personal schedule, internal meetings, and confidential demands. The house remained the same, simple, elegant, with the scent of new life. But inside, she was different. She no longer feared opening the refrigerator. Lily had diapers, medicine, toys, and she had a name, a profession, and peace. David visited frequently but without warning or fanfare. Sometimes he just came for lunch and left. Other times he brought a children's book, sat on the floor with Lily, and made her laugh. It was strange and beautiful to witness. He was still a reserved man, full of silences, but his silences now had a place in their routine. That morning, Sarah set the table with 3 cups, coffee, cornbread, and comfortable silence. David arrived punctually at 9 a.m., as he had promised in his last message. He brought a small container with cornbread, made by Eleanor. Brought back up, he said, placing the cake on the table. The 3 sat down. Lily in her high chair, babbling words, the 2 adults exchanging glances that spoke volumes. It was strange to call it family, but in silence, it already was. Sarah looked at the backyard, at the clear blue sky, and thought about how it all began. A wrong message, a click that could have been ignored, a mistake that became a bridge. She didn't know what would come next, if he would stay, if the world would allow it. But there, with the sun gently hitting her daughter's face and the coffee slowly cooling in her cup, she knew one thing. She didn't conquer the world, but she conquered what was within her. Sarah learned that strength doesn't reside in those who never fall, but in those who get up even when they have nothing to lean on, that accepting help isn't weakness, it's courage, and that sometimes what seems like a mistake, like a message sent to the wrong number, can be the beginning of the right path. For a long time, she thought she needed to be invisible to survive. That showing pain was asking to be discarded. But now, after everything, she understands that dignity doesn't come from resisting alone. It comes from choosing to move forward, even when the world doesn't make it easy. She still doesn't know what David feels. He still doesn't know what he can offer. But both learned that some stories don't begin with promises. They begin with presence. And that being there, in the midst of chaos, can be the strongest gesture there is. Lily grew up watching her mother work with focus, sitting in front of the computer, speaking with firmness. She grew up hearing stories about how everything changed when she was still in diapers. She grew up learning, without realizing it, that the world can be cruel, but it can also surprise you. And now, perhaps it's your turn to think. If a wrong click can change a life, what would you do if you received a message from someone desperate? Would you ignore it, or would you listen? Because sometimes destiny just needs a second of your attention to change everything. If this story touched you in some way, if at any point you saw yourself in Sarah, leave a like. It's our way of knowing it's worth continuing to tell stories like this. And I love knowing who's on the other side of the screen. Tell me in the comments, what city or country are you watching from? If you believe in the power of real stories, subscribe to the channel. This is just beginning, and every subscription is what gives me strength to continue. And don't leave now. Choose one of the stories on the end screen and stay with me in the next video. I'll see you there.